Howdy, hello, and hi there. My name is Joe Buchanan. I'm a Jewish country music artist from Houston, Texas, and I get questions like this a lot, and I can't wait to talk about it. People ask me all the time about my conversion to Judaism, what led to it. They ask me if I'm still glad that I did it, all these things. And, I spend about 3 weekends out of the month in different Jewish communities around the United States and abroad. I'm a full-time touring artist in residence. I do a program when I go out called Friday Night Lights, a Friday night Shabbat big kickoff celebration, Torah study. I do lunch and learns and Havdalah and concerts and communities, and then I visit the religious school before I head home on Sunday. So I give this talk quite a bit. It's called Choosing to Be Chosen, and I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of this story, and there's a lot of things I'm not going to cover. So if you have questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll make another video about it. We'll keep expanding and keep telling you more. I grew up very much believing in God. My grandparents taught me a very simple understanding of God, and it was that you can see a hand of the Creator in the way the world works and is put together. You can see sort of God, in other people. And if God wants anything from you, it's to live a good life. It was a really simple understanding of God. My grandparents were not Jewish. I was not born Jewish. As far as I know, they didn't go to church. I don't remember them having a Bible in the house. Maybe they did. I was young. When I was with them all the time. And but my grandmother, my grandmother's talks about God she would give me would be that God sees everything I'm doing. Right, Joey? God knows you didn't go to bed on time, or God knows you didn't do. It was interesting, but that version of God that I was taught was a very loving concept of God. It made a lot of sense to me as a kid. So I totally believed in God. And then when I moved in sort of with my folks, there was no talk of religion in that house. I remember that my folks weren't a fan of organized religion, and it just wasn't a thing that wasn't okay. And so I would stay the night. We were always staying the night at friends' houses. I was, on Saturday night, which also meant, hey, bring a change of clothes because you're going to church in the morning. And I went to a lot of different houses of worship. And as a kid who believed in God, I had a million questions. All of a sudden, here was a place that there was a book, right? There was somebody who knew stuff, like this person's the expert. And I found that the more the more questions I would ask and the more I would study, the less things made sense. And I realized, by the way, this is not the path for everybody. I get that. If you are someone, who believes differently, beautiful. As long as it adds value to your life and helps you be in your life to do good things, beautiful. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling you what happened with me and what led me to where I am. So I really struggled with the idea that, there was this place of, eternal torment that we were going to go because of something that we didn't do. And, I'd be like, well, what if I live a good life? And they're like, that's not the point. The point is, this and this and all this. And they're like, living a good life is important, but that's only part of it. And I'm like, I feel like that's the majority of the, Anyway, I don't think I was a troublemaker as a kid, but I was definitely told that I was. And I was told again and again and again that the problem was me. And my faith wasn't strong enough, or the veil over my eyes, or, I'm having a conflict of faith. And I was like, no, my faith is pretty rock solid. That's why I'm asking these questions. I went to a lot of different places, talked to a lot of different people who were very, very sweet, but at the end of the day, kept telling me the same thing. And it was very different from what I was taught early on about God. And, we have this phrase, right? 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong. So you hear enough times that this is how it is, you have to decide, is this how it is? Or, is everybody wrong? And I thought, well, everybody's basically telling me that the problem lies with me. And I kept hearing that, that I was essentially just damaged goods as I was, and everybody was, trying to get into heaven, and I just wouldn't get there unless I did certain things. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a loving God and doesn't make any sense to me. So I walked away from all that stuff and kind of took with me this idea that I wasn't good enough for the world. I wasn't good enough for God as I was, right? That was a tough thing to own as a kid. Not anybody's fault. It's just the way that I took it. It's the way that I carried it. And anywho, fast forward, I met my wife. I was working in a gaming store. We sold board games and Dungeons and Dragons. And in the door walks this lady, and I lost my mind, y'all. I couldn't have told you what day of the week it was. I couldn't have told you what my name was. I fell head over heels, madly in love, wanted to meet this person, and we talked and really hit it off. And, I played her a song. I had my guitar with me at the time, and, love at first sight's a very real thing. My wife will tell you it definitely took her some time, but one of the things that we did, and we were first getting together and dating, I told her, I said, well, what do you believe about God? And she said, it's not anything I think about. It's not part of, I don't think about God. And I said, well, I do. And I said, when I was young, I'd kind of told her everything. And I said, hey, is it okay if we'll find a church? You want to go with me? And we can just check it out. And, she was like, yeah, sure, I'll go with you. I'll just go with you, and, I'll be there for you. And, I thought, like, how, like, when you're a kid, right, and you eat beets, and you're like, oh, beets, ugh. But then you get older, and you're like, well, maybe beets, So I thought, well, maybe something's changed. Maybe my point of view will be different. Maybe I can receive the information a little better. So we went, and a couple things happened. Number one, the information hadn't changed. And number two, I noticed that my wife wouldn't participate in anything. And, I love singing, I love praying, and I was struggling with some of that stuff. And she is like a songbird. I mean, she's like a Disney princess, my wife. If she sings, the birds come out, they do stuff around the house. It's magical. And but she didn't want to be part of anything that was going on. She was just kind of holding my hand. And I remember I asked her, I said, you want to get in on this? And she's like, I'm just here for you. So we kind of made the decision to not go back. I was running into the same issues, and she really wasn't, into it. And so I just felt like, I guess it's just really just not for me. And anyway, fast forward, and I figured, like, look, God and I are going to settle up at some point. We'll figure out what's what. Fast forward 13 years into our marriage, and we are standing outside the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and just shaking. We're trying to make sense of everything that we've seen, and it just rocked us to our core. And she looked at me and she said, I want to get in touch with my people's faith. And I said, what? I said, hold on, like, who are your people? She goes, Joe, I'm Jewish. And I said, wait, hold on a minute. When did you get Jewish? What? She goes, I was born Jewish. And I said, I start mansplaining to my wife, right? I was like, April, I don't think that's a thing. And she's like, it's a thing. And she goes, my mother's Jewish. I said, yeah, I know that. And she goes, wait, my mom's Jewish, but you don't know that I'm Jewish? And I said, you never told me. Like, how am I supposed to know? And she's like, one of our first dates was like my cousin's Jewish wedding. I said, I know. It was the best wedding I've ever been to. The AC went out. It was a free bar. Great wedding. Folks, that's a true story. I had no clue that my wife was Jewish. I had no clue about the kind of the passing from parent to child and the covenant and all these things. And, and April didn't do anything, in the house or ever say she was Jewish or talk about anything related to being Jewish. There was no Shabbat candles. There was no anything like that. She grew up part of a military family and all that ritual, and there was no shul or community or synagogue or, summer camp. There was nothing like that. And so none of that was part of the experience or part of our experience as a couple. Completely wild. And she had a Star of David necklace in her jewelry box that now she wears every day, but we found out that it was from an Afikoman bag when she was 4 years old. So wild story. And she's like, by the way, our son is Jewish. When we were sitting there talking, and I said, does he know that? And she goes, I don't think he does. And he found out he was Jewish when he was 12. Every time I tell the story, people are like, there's no way that's true. Spoiler alert, very true. And it's apparently not that uncommon of a story the more I've kind of told it and talked to people out there. But I said, look, the only thing I know is there's something about pork. I don't know anything. I grew up in Houston, Texas. We have a massive Jewish population here. It's so huge, but all the synagogues and everything, they're all back in the neighborhoods. They're not on the highway. They're not on the main roads anywhere. We had a ranch out in South Texas for a long time, and so we'd spend like part of the year out there. And so met people and spent time with people from all over the state, and never met anybody who was Jewish. Never saw anyone wearing a kippah. Never saw anyone wearing a Star of David. I never heard anything anti-Semitic. I never heard any jokes about the Jewish people. The only time I heard about the Jewish people was 2 weeks in history class, which was a terrible thing to be the only thing you learn about a people. This is true. And so I said, look, well, let's find somebody that can tell us more. So we did. We tried doing some studying on our own, and finally we found this shul down the road from our house, a place called Shar HaShalom here in Houston, Texas. We walked in the door, and there's Rabbi Stuart Federow, just larger than life and about as big a heart as you could ever find on a human being. And he says, "Hi, I'm Stuart the Rabbi," and I said, "Well, hi, my name is Joe. This is my wife April, son Nathan. They're Jewish. I'm not, and none of us know what that means." And he kind of laughed, and he goes, "You want me to just break it all down for you?" I said, "Yes, sir, that would be great." And this is what he said. He looked right at me, and I'm going to do another video, a shorter video on this to kind of break these points down. But here's a kind of a summary of what he said. He said, "All right, here it is." He said, "There is one God, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're loved by your Creator exactly as you are. You're part of creation, loved and known by God, just like this. You don't have to do anything to be loved by God. It's done. There's no weight on your soul or struggle for your soul. You're great just like this, and it's okay. It's okay." He said, "You do good because it puts more good in the world. It's not for a reward later on. It's not for some fear of punishment to come. It's for right now." He said, "The reward for doing good is the good that you see in the world, so add to the good in the world." He said, "And we don't know what happens next. We know the soul goes back to God who gave it, whatever that looks like. We don't know. But we do know what happens now." And he said, "This life is a gift, and you have to take such good care of it. Take care of you, help take care of those around you, and then help take care of the world and put more good into it." And I looked at him and I said, "Is that it?" And he goes, "No, there's a lot more." That's kind of the just looking in the front door. He said, "There's a lot more than that." And it was like 30 years of therapy all at once. I'd never had an adult say anything like that to me in my life. It shook me to my core. It really did. And I said, "Well, can I do this?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, Can I be Jewish?" Because my experience, y'all, is that, people who you want to join a particular, like a religion, you go through a process, you accept some things, just do some stuff, and then boom, and then you go through that. Obviously very different with Judaism. But I said, can I do this? And he goes, "Yeah, sure." He said, "Be here Wednesday." And it took a lot longer than that. There's a whole process, but it took me about a year and a half. And I went through the conversion process. My wife and son went through those classes with me, even though they didn't have to. They wanted to learn. My son, was like, "Yeah, this makes so much sense." And it changed everything for our family. It really did. I started writing Jewish music to kind of understand at a deeper level the stories that we were learning about in the Torah and the prayers that we were singing in services, and to try to figure out kind of where can I find myself in these, and what is this trying to say, and what does this mean. And so I started writing all this music to help myself understand this. And I thought, somebody heard me, found out that I was doing that, and my rabbi asked me to play a tune for him, and I did. And he's like, "All right, come do it for our community." And then he was like, "All right, we need to do more stuff." And then somebody else heard me, and I started kind of getting asked to come and do things. And met a great friend of mine, a fellow by the name of Saul Kay, who's just he's basically just family at this point. And he said, "Well, I heard your story, and I heard I played him a song." And he said, "All right, let's make an album." So we did. That was Unbroken, which was my first album, and it was a lot about the journey home. There's actually a song on there called Unbroken that is a sort of a summary of everything I've told you. And so I thought, there's so many, as we started going, I was like, well, there's so many healing messages in everything that we are and everything that we believe. There's so much goodness, and the world really doesn't know anything about who we are. And I say that from tremendous experience as someone who was asking and, knocking on doors and asking, no clue whatsoever growing up about any of this stuff. And there's so much goodness in who we are, and I want to get that message out as much as possible. I want to uplift the community that has taken me in, that has really just opened up this door for my family and I want to do everything I can to support them, and at the same time be a bridge and an open door to other folks to say, hey, come, this is who we are. We're your neighbors. Come on in. I don't think that we don't have to believe the same things. We don't have to follow the same religions to share a neighborhood. We can live in our separate houses, but this lifetime is a neighborhood that we're sharing. We got to take such good care of it, and we do better work together than we do apart. And we don't do it by hating each other or by trying to change what somebody believes to make it look more like what they believe. Just accepting people and getting to know folks and spending time with people. You don't have to agree with and like everybody to do good work in the world, and there's just no room for hate or any of that nonsense. And I work very hard on that and try to do the most that I can to put more good out there. And so anyway, that's my conversion story in a nutshell. There's a lot of things I didn't talk about. If you have questions about that stuff, I would be so happy to answer that. I look forward to it. Thanks a bunch again for all the love. I'm glad y'all are enjoying the new album. Really been pretty pleased. Again, I've said it before, but as an independent artist, it's amazing to see when something you've written has connected with folks, and it's had I just appreciate all the love. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're enjoying it. It's called Heaven and Earth if you haven't heard it yet. 15 tracks, original Jewish country music. And thanks a bunch. That's it. So take care, be well, God bless, tread gently in the lives of others, and remember to sing. And if I need to know that God loves the world, well, she's the sign that I'm my beloved. My beloved is mine.